So, all disease starts in the gut. That's right. All disease starts in the gut. How does that even work? I mean, it just sounds crazy. So you're telling me diabetes is caused by whatever's happening in the gut? I mean, I understand that sugar attributes to diabetes, but I mean, how does the gut cause all disease? It doesn't make any sense. Well, there's this thing called the microbiome. And in the microbiome, which is basically mostly in the gut, but it's throughout our whole bodies, in the microbiome, there are trillions of bacteria cells. And in fact, these trillions of bacteria cells make up more of the human body than human DNA. So, this is obviously very important that we work with the microbiome to bring our bodies back to an equilibrium, right? And this equilibrium is called homeostasis. And to attain equilibrium in the microbiome, we must balance the good bacteria with the bad bacteria. That's right. There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. And when we talk about homeostasis, we are talking about an equilibrium between the two. So what happens when the bad bacteria takes over and dominates the microbiome? In other words, what happens when we're out of homeostasis and the bad bacteria are winning the war? Well, I'll tell you what happens. The bad bacteria excrete a toxic chemical, otherwise known as bile. This bile causes inflammation, which then triggers our epigenome, which then triggers our predisposition towards disease. That's right. We inherited our predisposition towards disease from our grandparents and what they ate during their formative years via the epigenome. So the epigenome is epigenetics in the sense that it transfers information from generation to generation. And when it comes to predisposition towards disease, what our grandparents ate during their formative years determines our predisposition towards disease through the epigenome. So, with that all understood, why did what our grandparents eat during their formative years have such a huge influence on the epigenome? And why do what we eat during our lifetime have such an influence on our predisposition towards disease? Right? So we inherit our predispositions from our grandparents, and we trigger our predispositions by what we eat today. So, and how does this work? Again, the bad bacteria take over the microbiome, they dominate it, they excrete a toxic chemical known as bile. That bile causes inflammation, which then triggers our epigenome, which then triggers our predisposition towards disease. So, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, so on and so forth, all of it starts in the gut. And it starts in the gut because the bad bacteria are feeding off of the American diet or the modern diet of meat, bread, dairy, sugar, and other acidic foods like tomatoes, potatoes, corn, blah, blah, blah. So, if you're eating this diet on a regular basis, chances are you're going to come down with a disease and you're going to die from this disease because you are relying on modern medicine or modern nutrition, and you don't understand this complete and total paradigm shift that's required. And that means we have to feed the good bacteria, we have to empower the good bacteria so that we can bring our microbiome back to homeostasis or equilibrium. Otherwise, the bad bacteria will dominate and cause inflammation and cause our diseases. Therefore, we must limit meat, bread, dairy, and sugar. And if we're sick, we must eliminate it from our diets. So the good bacteria, again, feed on what? They feed on vegetables, nuts, fruits, legumes, and they especially love garlic and onions. Very fascinating. Also, they love cannabis. That's right. Good bacteria loves cannabis. And they love cannabis because it empowers them and enlivens them and energizes them so that they can take on this battle against the bad bacteria. And then, therefore, bring our bodies back to homeostasis. And that's the goal. The goal is to bring our bodies back to an equilibrium between the good and bad bacteria so that our bodies can self-regulate and self-heal. If we are in a constant state of inflammation, our bodies come down with chronic illnesses and then basically disease. And this is how we all die, right? We are dying because of our diets. So now, the goal is homeostasis. We do this by ingesting cannabis and by ingesting a vegan diet with some eggs, because of course the good stuff's in the eggs. So we'll get into the diet and the diet plan and how to make the smoothies and all that stuff next. But first and foremost, understand that we got to bring that microbiome back to homeostasis. And the only way to do that is to empower the good bacteria. Thank you.